Welcome to the Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Tiffany Sapp, and I'm so glad to be with you today. Today, we consider what it means to live wholeheartedly, which is really to say, if we want to be happier, more connected, and more authentic in our lives, how do we go about doing that? I'll tell you one thing that made my heart expand, and that was seeing some of you at our in-person water communion last week. After our chalice lighting, our prelude will feature a compilation of images from that day. It features water droplets that express our hopes and dreams for our community's future. But first, we will light our chalice with words from Mary Daly, who describes herself as a radical lesbian feminist. She defines courage for us, which is an essential part of living wholeheartedly.
Courage is like a habit, a virtue. You get it by courageous acts. It's like you learn to swim by swimming. You learn courage by couraging. I'm Spencer Konko. I'm happy to be your service leader here today. We will sing Loving Kindness next. Please hold a light in your heart to dispel the darkness, to honor someone or some event, or to lift up a memory. Our reading today comes from Brené Brown's The Gift of Imperfections. In this excerpt, she talks about the term belonging. Belonging is the innate human desire to be a part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. It's so much easier to say, I'll be whoever or whatever you need me to be, as long as I feel like I'm part of this. From gangs to gossiping, we'll do what it takes to fit in, and if we believe it will meet our need for belonging. But it doesn't. We can only belong when we offer our most authentic selves and when we're embraced for who we are.
When I was in middle school, I consumed books with a voracious appetite. I would read ahead in my school-assigned books, try every series that my equally bookish friends recommended to me, and when all else failed, I would go to the library and see which title would draw my attention. It was during one of these book hunts that I was gripped by a title resting on the shelves, Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days. Now, a glance at the book told me that this was a fiction story, not an instruction manual, but I was intrigued. My middle school self had been discovering how mean people can be when you are less than perfect. The allure of perfection as a way of protecting myself was very appealing to me. Ironically, the main character in the book, Milo, was also in middle school and also discovered a strange book by the same title in his library. He was also looking for a way to avoid pain and embarrassment by being perfect. Milo was given a series of ridiculous tasks by the book's author, all with the promise that these tasks would make him perfect. The one I will never forget was the day that Milo had to tie a head of broccoli onto a loop of string and wear it around his neck all day. That was supposed to help him get over embarrassment. So, Milo jumps through all these hoops and endures trials of ridiculousness, hoping that when he gets to the final day, there would be a big payoff and it would all be worth it. He would finally be perfect and therefore invulnerable. Instead, on the final day, he is instructed to sit quietly in his room all day drinking weak tea. The logic was that if he didn't do anything, then he couldn't mess anything up and would therefore be perfect. Milo and I were both unimpressed by this approach. And that was naturally the author's point. This kind of perfection where we avoid mistakes at all costs really isn't living at all. We hear the story and ask ourselves, What kind of fool would give up their entire life just to avoid the pain of making a mistake? And yet, in 2006, author and researcher Brené Brown discovered that actually we all do this to some degree or another. In The Gifts of Imperfection, Dr. Brown shares how her research into living wholeheartedly, living an authentic, loving, connected, and joyful life can be within our grasp if we can prioritize living from our hearts with courage and authenticity over the self-protective attempts at hiding our flaws and fitting in. The book is too much to summarize here. I hope you'll read it if you discover this topic interests you. But the basics are this. We can live wholeheartedly by cultivating personal practices and disciplines around courage, compassion, and connection. Like most things worthwhile that we explore here, living wholeheartedly is something that we practice. Like our chalice lighting said, we courage by couraging. The work of cultivating habits that will help us live wholeheartedly is so important because we humans are wired for connection. Love and belonging hold a very foundational place in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right after safety needs. But we can't truly connect if we are hiding who we are. If we present a facade, then people won't connect with us. They'll connect with the illusion we've been creating instead. Which is why Brené Brown said in our reading, we can only belong when we offer our most authentic selves and when we're embraced for who we are. But offering our most authentic selves means vulnerability, because there is no guarantee that we will be embraced for who we are. The risk is great, and so is the payoff. If people keep getting your everything's fine facade, then they'll never have the chance to embrace the real you, and you won't get the support that you need either. And if we're here to build a community that loves each other and supports each other, then we have to know each other, which means that we're going to have to risk being vulnerable with each other. But Brené Brown also makes it really clear that not everyone deserves our most difficult stories. Instead, we have to do the work of cultivating a relationship or two that can be a safe container for our struggles. Someone that can hear our stories of shame, embarrassment, or fear and not try to judge us or minimize our stories. We all need relationships where we can put down these heavy loads that we carry. And so we inch toward a more authentic relationship with people who we think might be safe to tell our stories to. So, does it change the risk-taking mental calculations that we make around these risks and around vulnerability if we know that we are doing the risk-taking in a community where we are all aware of the need for vulnerability and for the risks and rewards involved? Is it easier to try if you know that the person that you are trying with is also striving to live wholeheartedly? Does it help to do this within a community where we have covenanted to practice good faith and openness, communicate directly and honestly, and offer our best and assume the best in others? Does it help to know that we are all guided by the third principle of Unitarian Universalism that calls us to acceptance of one another and to experience that spiritual growth that comes from the practices of acceptance? I hope it does. And I hope we can try these things together. I hope that we can each identify someone here who we would like to try living wholeheartedly with. Maybe you already have. Maybe you are already doing this work with a few people that you found out you can trust. And maybe if you haven't, it's time to seek them out. What does this sort of risk-taking of wholehearted living look like in community? Author Jennifer Dukes Lee observed an example at her daughter's sleepover party. The girls were at that strange in-between age where they're part child, part teen, and you're never sure which version of them you're going to get. The girls had all settled down to watch a movie, and one of the girls, Maddie, was visibly having some sort of internal struggle before coming to some sort of decision. After she thought everyone was engrossed enough in the movie to not notice, Maddie snuck to her backpack and pulled out her lovey, a worn-out old blanket that meant the world to her. Maddie knew she would settle down best with her blanket, but she didn't want the girls who were rapidly exchanging dolls for makeup to know that she still carried the thing around. She had almost snuck all the way to her spot in front of the TV with her lovey when one of the girls asked, "What you got there?" Maddie had a choice, and in that moment she took the deep breath she needed and she couraged. She showed them her lovey. She told them about how it had been a gift to her before she had ever been born, and about how it had seen her through a million road trips and an especially scary doctor's visit. She laid it all out there, as if she was saying, "This is a part of me that I have kept hidden. Can you accept it?" One by one, the girls moved away from Maddie. One by one, they went to their own bags and unzipped them. One by one, they revealed their own loveys, stuffies, and dollies. Every one of them had snuck a comfort item into the sleepover. Every one of them had hidden them away. The observing parent called it the great unzipping. I wonder what we've hidden away, what we think is a unique struggle, a unique pain, but is really shared by so many others. I wonder what shame you've been carrying and what relief you might feel by finding a trusted person to share it with. I wonder what courageous thing your heart has been calling you to do that you've been resisting. In our brief time together, I've gotten to see many of you living wholeheartedly. I've heard people who are supremely competent admit that they are tired and need a break. Because asking for help or a break is living wholeheartedly. I've seen people who do not like to make waves get really fired up about speaking up for some marginalized people who were being overlooked. Getting angry about injustices happening in front of you and expressing it is living wholeheartedly. I've witnessed young people asking for the pronouns that best represent them and spending the energy to remind people who they really are. Telling people who you really are is living wholeheartedly. All of these things are profound acts of courage and vulnerability. All of them feel uncomfortable at the time, but open the doors to better living, not just for them, but all of us as we are challenged to grow together. All of them are risks that are easier when we've built a community where compassion and trust are present and supported by covenant. How will you practice wholehearted living this week? What story will you share? What courageous thing will you do? I hope you find something, even just a little thing, that you can try this week. And that when you do, you are received with all the love, wonder, and acceptance that you deserve.
Our benediction is from poet John Rodell. You can find more of his work at johnrodell.com. There's no handbook for any of this. There are no hard and fast rules for times like these. You're doing the best you can, holding things together while the world falls apart in this age of fear and fret. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be gentle with yourself and everyone else, because that's all you can really control, isn't it? Yes, things might unravel a bit more before this is all done. You might as well. And it's okay if you do. While the world is resetting its router, we can take turns deciding who gets to cry on the couch. We can take turns becoming a balm for one another. We can take turns yelling up into the silent sky. We can take turns having insomnia. We can take turns being confessionals for one another. We can take turns brushing the tears off each other's faces. Don't worry about getting all of this right. You won't. Don't worry about making mistakes. You will. You're doing the best you can. There's only one commandment for enduring the storm, and it's this. Go easy, my love. Go easy. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
The most important work is work that we cannot do alone. I am so glad that we are in community together, that we can practice courageous authenticity together, that we can support each other in living wholeheartedly. I know that it's a hard time to be in community and that we are eager to see each other face to face. Our reopening task force has a great plan in place for when we can start to do a partial reopen, which will have both in-person and online services. But as of the time that I'm making this recording, it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Even though vaccination rates are slowly increasing in Tennessee, and we want you all to get your vaccination if you can, and if you haven't already, covidactnow.org still has our area in deep red. So according to our plan, we won't consider the partial reopen until we are in yellow. You can visit covidactnow.org regularly to monitor our area's progress. In the meantime, we want to facilitate connection creatively and in whatever way we can. Starting next week, your religious services team will be producing our Sunday services live on Zoom. Links to our Zoom services will be available under upcoming services on our website and will also come to your inbox to the email we have on file for you. These Zoom services will also be posted to YouTube, so you can keep on watching them like you always have been. But there are going to be more timely and more interactive elements to this service. So I hope you'll come join us in Zoom and see what the new service format is all about. We're coming up with other ways to connect too. We'll be gathering for some fireside fall fun on Saturday, October 23rd at a nearby members farm. So save that date now and look for more information coming soon. I'm hosting a hike to the Flint Creek Battle Site at Rocky Fork State Park on October 16th. Check our events page for more information. The youth group is currently signing youth up for their fall program, so take a look in the online news section of the website to get more information about that if you have youth 12 or older. And don't forget that I'm here to talk to you, either in person or online. Reach out to me or to the caring team if you need someone to talk to. Our social justice team is looking for recruits. Look for information on how to join this foundational work of the church in the announcements or on our website in the news section. And don't forget, get that vaccination. I know that was a lot of announcements, but it's a blessing to know that there are so many ways to stay involved with and connected to our community, because it's hard to live wholeheartedly without other people to share your heart with. Our postlude is Instant Karma, written by John Lennon and performed by Wendy Hurl and Ann Johnson. John, Mr. Lennon, seems to know a little bit about this wholehearted living thing. He says, "Why in the world are we here? Surely not to live in pain and fear. And we all shine on." And so there's nothing left to say but yay, church! See you next week.
Instant karma's gonna get you, gonna knock you right in the head. You better get yourself together, pretty soon you're gonna be dead. What in the world you thinking of? Laughing in the face of love. What on earth you trying to do? It's up to you, yeah, you. Instant karma's gonna get you, gonna look you right in the face. You better get yourself together, darling. Join the human race. How in the world you gonna see, laughing at fools like me? Who in the hell do you think you are? A superstar? Well, alright, you are. Well, we all shine on, like the moon and the stars and the sun. Well, we all shine on. Everyone, come on. The instant karma's gonna get you. It's gonna knock you off your feet. You better recognize your brothers, everyone you meet. Why in the world are we here? Surely not to live in pain and fear. Why on earth are you there when you're everywhere? Come and get your share. Well, we all shine on, like the moon and the stars and the sun. Well, we all shine on and on and on, on. Well, we all shine on, like the moon and the stars and the sun. Well, we all